Hello, audience. Hello, hello. How is it going? Where did Aaron go? Let me see. Hey, Aaron. How are you? Hey, audience. Thank you for joining us. We are here today to talk about how to master cold calling. Very excited. That's a great topic. Great topic for a Monday, actually. But first, while we'll give folks a few minutes to join us, let's do a quick icebreaker. Audience, I want you to go in the chat and tell us where you're calling from. And I also have a poll for you. So the poll is open. Go ahead and answer the poll. We want to hear from you. We want this to be very conversational, very participatory. So audience, you're in for a treat. Oh, we have people from everywhere. That's pretty cool. And I also have a second icebreaker that I want you audience to go in the chat and tell us. And Aaron, I want you to let me know, what is your holiday opening going to be? Hey, Aaron, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, I
Yeah.
can.
So the icebreaker is, what is going to be your holiday opener? Can you tell us a little bit?
My
Yeah.
yeah, my holiday opener is going to be, hey, this is Aaron calling from Orum. It's good to connect with you. Happy holidays. How are you doing? Simple
That's
as
a good
that.
one.
Yeah.
Simple, yeah, simple, short and simple. Just go straight to the point. Audience, please go in the chat. Let us know what's your holiday opener. We are so excited. Let me share my slides in here. Let's get started. So today we're here to talk about overcoming objections, hot tips on how to mastering cold calling with the one and only Aaron Melamed. We are so excited about the amazing content and takeaways you will get from this event. And today's event is brought to you by the team at Modern Sales Pros. For those of you not familiar with MSP, we are the world's largest and highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership, sales and revenue operations, and sales enablement, aka our Modern Sales Pros. And our mission is to create an environment for um, our members to answer questions they would struggle to solve on their own and to help them see corners they might not know about. And we do that through live sessions like this one you're about to experience. We have a robust online forum and we have quarterly summits. And next year, we are starting to get back into in-person events, which is very exciting. So if you're not already part of the MSP crew, you will be invited to join right after this event. And as I mentioned, we have quarterly summits. So we just launched the Mega SKO in January 24th to 26th, 2023. We are organizing more than 20 events, 5,000 modern sales pros in attendance, and 60 plus high caliber speakers. You can hear from leaders at Drift, Sales Loft, Lean Data, Stage 2 Capital, plus so much more. Don't miss out next year. Sign up today. Let me just put this link in the chat right here. Audience, you can go ahead and RSVP right now. But that's enough about other events. Let's talk about this one. So I have some housekeeping notes in here just to make sure that everyone's getting the most out of this event. Please use the Q&A panel. As I said, this is a participatory event, and I have something to ask you, audience. In the Q&A panel, we have the text Q&A and the video Q&A. So we extremely encourage you to send us video Q&As. You can join Aaron on stage and ask your question live for everyone to see, and that's going to be fantastic. We want you to do that. So please do that. And also, this panel is being recorded. You will be able to access all the knowledge that Aaron is throwing on you today afterwards in the MSP website. And you will also receive a follow-up email with the link for the recording. Um, and as you know, by this point, we have our amazing Aaron as our panelist. Aaron, I'm going to pass it to you so you can introduce our amazing sponsor, Orum, for today. And audience, we have a request demo button at the top of this page, so you can request a demo with Orum, and you can also access their booth at the top of this page to see some ungated resources. So Aaron, why don't you tell us a little bit about Orum?
Yeah, my pleasure. Orin is a solution that helps reps get more conversations over the phone. It's as simple as that. We do it by integrating into the modern tech stack, so solutions like Outreach, SalesLoft, HubSpot, as well as Salesforce. We integrate directly into those solutions, pull in the due tasks that are due for a rep, and then we use AI to assist with the dialing efforts. The outcomes that our customers are typically looking to achieve are, double, triple the number of connections that a rep can achieve in a day. ultimately leading to more pipeline, more booked revenue. It's as simple as that.
That sounds fantastic. That sounds like a great tool to have. Aaron, so now it's your time to shine. I'm going to put your LinkedIn in the chat so everyone can connect with you. You can take it from here, start your masterclass. So please introduce yourself to the audience. I'm going backstage, but I'll be listening because I'm going to be taking a lot of notes. And I'll be back at the end of the event for some closing remarks. That sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. So let me share the results of the poll right now, and then you can start from there. I'll see you later.
Cool. All right, so I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. So I'm an account executive at Orum. I've been in SaaS sales for since 2012. I was one of the first reps at a company called Namely. I sold their first customer. Over the last 10 years, I've been at some other great companies like Greenhouse and Heap and now Orum. I've built out lots of SDR teams, value selling playbooks, and now currently back in seat as an IC at Orum and absolutely loving it. It's so much fun. I think I have a pretty broad perspective on what works, particularly on this topic. And I'm happy to share with you today. I'm very passionate about the sales development discipline. It's always been, in my opinion, you can't close a deal if it doesn't exist for you. So you always have to start there, and generating pipeline, whether or not you're an SDR or you're an AE, is just a fundamental part of the process. And so overcoming objections is a really, really key piece. It can drive a lot of revenue for organizations if you can do it effectively. I think most people don't know how to do it effectively. And there are some simple things that you can apply to get large improvements, and small improvements in objection handling do result in a surprising increase in booked revenue. So happy to talk about it today. All right, so first thing that we're going to talk about, so there's a couple things that we're going to talk about. So what are the most common objections? And then how do you categorize objections? Then we also want to talk about how do you actually formulate a response to an objection. There's a simple framework that I can give you for that. And then we want to talk a little bit about tonality. And then this is potentially one of the most overlooked parts of the process. How do you practice overcoming objections? I think for a lot of people, will say, yeah, it's role play. But what does a good role play look like? And how can you be super effective with that time? And what is the point of that role play? And then we'll wrap up with some common mistakes that people make when handling objections. So yeah, those are the kind of general categories that we'll discuss today. Feel free to please dump your questions into the chat, or if you're brave, do a video question. Makes it a lot more fun and interesting for me. So yeah, just looking forward to get this going. So first thing that we're going to talk about is what are the most common objections. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you the top three that I certainly experience, and I believe most of my customers experience this as well, which is I'm busy, send me information, and I'm not interested. Surprisingly, it doesn't matter what industry, vertical that you're calling into. Those objections come up over and over and over again. One of the things that I find interesting is I think particularly if you're new to sales, is that you think to yourself, oh my gosh, there's a million objections that I have to learn. There's actually not. There's really there are 9 common objections. Those 3 are a large percentage of them. There's actually 9 common objections that frequently show up, and we'll talk about those. And then usually there'll be like 2 or 3 more tops that are company specific. So I'll give you an example. So Orum is a solution that you use to get more live conversations. We make cold calls with Orum. That is what we do. sometimes you get an objection that's like, yeah, we don't pick up the phone at all. You're not going to get that objection at a cybersecurity shop. You're going to get something different. So there'll always be at least one, usually no more than two, sometimes three company-specific objections. But let's just, I'm going to go through, I'm just going to kind of rattle off all of the 9 most common objections that you're going to hear. So it's, I'm busy, send me information, I'm not interested, I'm not the decision maker, I'm not the right person, we're implementing other tools right now, we already use a competitor, how did you get my number? That's a great one. I thought you were someone else. And then, of course, no budget. So, and then you'll have on top of that a few company-specific objections. So my advice to everyone on this call is write all those down and then formulate a response to it. If you do that, you're already in a better position. I don't think most people have not written these objections. Most people have not written these objections down, and most people have not formulated some sort of standardized response. And so the lowest hanging fruit for anyone on this call, if you think that maybe I'm missing 1 or 2, sure, that's fine. But you should take all those 9, write them down, and then formulate a response. Already, you can hang up from this call and you'll be in a better position. But let me give you an example of how I handle a very common one, which is send me information. And really my objective is to just buy myself a little bit more time to continue the conversation. So someone says, you know, Aaron, seems interesting, but you can send me some information. I'm like, look, I know I caught you cold here, but do you mind if I just explain a little bit more about what we do? So that way we don't have to bother with any unnecessary follow-up. So oftentimes people use the send me the information to just brush you off. The reality is that the send me the information is just a part of the brush off category. So I'll say it again, someone, you know, hey, this is Aaron calling from Orum. It's good to connect with you. How are you doing? They're like, sorry, who's this? Yeah, this is Aaron calling from Orum. The reason why I was reaching out to you is saw that you're managing sales development at XYZ company. We help reps get more conversations over the phone. Do you have reps hitting the phone these days? And then they'll say, look, sorry, I'm not interested. Look, I know I caught you cold here. Do you mind if I level with you really quickly and explain what we do? And that way we don't have to waste time with any unnecessary follow-up. So that's an example of how I would handle that. There are a million ways to formulate a response. I'm going to give you a framework about how to formulate a response later. But ultimately, that is the one that I use, and it's very effective. And a large percentage of the time, people will say, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I actually want you to explain this for 30 seconds so you can take me out of your, 24-step, 4-week cadence with emails, calls, and LinkedIn touches. It's almost like a way out for people. So another common one, right? I'm running into a meeting. I handle it almost, or I'm busy right now. I handle it almost exactly the same. Look, I know I caught you cold here. Do you mind if I would just very briefly explain a little bit more about what we do? And then you can let me know if you want to continue the conversation. So a couple of things going on there. I acknowledged what was going on. I showed some empathy. I realized I caught them cold. I've interrupted them, but do you mind if I just explain a little bit more? And then you can let me know if you want to continue the conversation. I can't tell you how many times people are like, yeah, go ahead. Go right ahead. And then, you might get some more objections after that. But that's okay. That's just a part of the game. The purpose of that initial objection handle is to just buy myself some more time to create some sort of intrigue and interest. So, okay. I'm not going to go through all of the 9 objections and all the responses. The next thing I'm going to talk about is how to categorize. And in general, labeling things, if you're trying to scale a sales team, is very important. I try to label everything in my life. I'm a big fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been training for almost 10 years. I have a brown belt. And what's really important is at the end of every single class, I write things down in a note class, in a notebook that I have. And I have categories, and I place things in categories and I put names on them. And this helps me organize and think about these things afterwards, and just have a structured mindset about it. It's the same thing with cold calling. So what are the categories of cold calling or of objections? And the categories are, I have 6 categories, and there's really a seventh category as well. But the main ones are the brush off, and the brush off comes in many different forms. I gave you the top 3 that I gave you are brush offs. I'm busy, send me information. I'm not interested. The next one is authority, which is I'm not the decision maker. And then bandwidth. So I'm implementing other tools right now. I'm too busy. Ops doesn't have enough resources. That's a bandwidth objection. And then there's, of course, the competition. Yeah, we're already using a competitor. One thing to note in any sort of response to a competitor, there's a bunch of different ways to handle it, but it is incumbent on you to understand whether or not you're an SDR or an AE, to understand some key differences that you can list out in case you encounter that objection. 5th one is surprise. So it's like, sorry, I thought, I was expecting a call from my doctor. I thought you were my doctor. And then, the other one in that category is, how did you get my number? Right? They're like, wait, what's going on here? How did you get my number? Common one. Yeah, I just saw a comment there. Play your own game. Don't ever talk trash about your competitor. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, talking trash isn't about, or the using a competitor. What you want to talk about is how you're different and how that benefits them. But yeah, very good call out. So the 6th category is budget. Yeah, sorry, we don't have budget. Never hear that one. Especially now, everyone is just flush with cash and spending tons of money on on new software projects. So, and then the last category is the company specific category. So you'll always have at least 1, 2, maybe 3 tops objections that are company specific. So one of the customers that I'm working with, they are a software solution that helps manage foreign exchange risk. They have like 3 company specific objections about their banking systems that they use and things like that. And the answers are just so easy. And it's just back to the point that I was bringing up earlier. If there's one thing that everyone can do, write those 9 objections down, plus the company specific ones. Formulate a response, and I guarantee you will see more booked meetings. It's gravity. You just small improvements will make a big difference here. So, okay, so you want to categorize them, and so think about a document that's 3 columns. It's the objection that you get, its category, or the response to that objection, and its category. And this will help all reps, new reps, seasoned reps, learn much more quickly. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is how we formulate a response. So there are 2 components to this framework. The first component is empathy, and then the second component is what I call permission. So when someone says, hey, Aaron, can you send me some information? And I'll let you know if this is relevant. And they're brushing me off. My response is, the first thing is empathy. Look, I know I caught you cold here. Would you mind if I explained a little bit more about what we do? And that way we don't have to waste any time with unnecessary follow-up. So I asked permission after I acknowledged the interrupt. Another way that this works could be, so this is a company, very, very company specific one to Orum, which is we are strategic. We don't make a ton of phone calls. And my response to that, when someone says that to me, which is often, look, I hear you. Would you be open to discussing this a little bit further so I can give you insight into how we can support a strategic calling motion? So I was empathetic. I hear you. Would you be open to discussing this? Right? And I asked permission to proceed with a conversation. And I can't, very rarely do I ever actually get told no. It happens. But I'm going to estimate more than 50% of the time, if I've gotten into a place where someone's saying, hey, we're too strategic, well, would you be able to discussing this a little bit more so I can tell you how we can support a strategic motion? All right. Usually people are 60% of the time, works all the time. That's exactly right. That's facts. So real simple though, show empathy and then ask for permission to continue. In almost all of my brush offs, would you mind if I borrow 30 seconds to explain a little bit more? Would you mind if I borrow 30 seconds to explain a little bit more? And I just tweak things a little bit differently to match like more appropriately what the objection that you actually got was. So let me kind of run through this again. Two most important components of formulating a response to an objection is show some empathy and then ask permission to proceed. Now, in the case of, hey, do you want to talk about how we can support a strategic calling motion? Yes, you need to know how to, whatever that thing is, you need to know how to discuss that. Same thing with the differentiation component, or if someone's using a competitor, your reps need to be armed with some points of differentiation. So there is some work to do on that. But none of it's very hard, right? Just be outcome focused. What are the outcomes that you get for your customers? For Orum, we double your connections. We triple your connections. We lower your customer acquisition cost. Those are the, it's revenue, cost, or risk, right? You want to increase revenue, decrease cost, or decrease risk. And so always make sure that when you're getting into the deeper level parts of the conversation on a cold call, that you are outcome focused. What is the point of those points of differentiation? What are the benefits of that differentiation? It should come in the flavor of increase in revenue, decrease in cost, and a decrease in risk. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to discuss is tonality. Tonality is a very, very important part of the game. I just saw one of my colleagues post today. Avi basically says, stop cold calling if you don't get your tone right. Something along the lines of that. But he's correct. And there is no one answer for what is the right tone. But there are two words that I think are helpful to like hold inside of your heart, which is empathy and curiosity. If you're curious about someone, it implies that you're interested, and there's like, I almost think that it is a curiosity is a there's some love a part of curiosity, and so if you are showing, just put a Post-it note on your computer, curiosity and empathy, and then practice how that sounds when you're working on your objections. Just hold those two words close to your heart as you are saying anything. And I think so again, when someone asks me, hey, Aaron, I'm busy right now. Look, I know I caught you cold here. Do you mind if I just borrow 30 seconds to explain a little bit more? And then you can let me know if you want to continue the conversation. I'm curious. I'm empathetic. I acknowledge what's going on. Just keep those two words in your mind, and I think that will help you with your tonality. If you are monotone, it's not going to work. If you're overly excited, that's not going to work. If you do want to match their, mirror their tonality a little bit as well, but not exactly, you need to be curious about them and show that you care and have like a burning desire that you know that you can help them in some sort of way to increase revenue, decrease cost, or decrease risk. So next thing that I want to talk about is how to practice. So the first thing is you need to write the 9 objections down, plus the 1, 2, or 3 company specific objections. Write them out on a table, formulate responses. I think that it is best for, you can do this collaboratively, run a poll at your company, or submit a Google form. What are the most common objections you get? I guarantee they're going to be basically the same as the 9, plus a few company specific ones. And then have someone take a pass at it, then have someone empathetic, or have someone like review it and make sure there's empathy, and we're asking for permission to proceed in those responses. And then now we have a completed table of objections. And then the next thing to do, here's my big idea, read them out loud. So circulate it in your company and then have everyone read the words on the page. What is the goal? What is the goal of doing that? The goal of doing that is to get in touch with the curiosity, your curious self and your empathetic self. The point of the practice is to work on your tonality. The actual objections themselves are so painfully easy, right? Would you mind if I borrowed 30 seconds to explain a little bit more, right? It's just like, it's so easy to say those words. The difficult part is to say it that in your authentic voice. So, and that's what the purpose of reading the words out loud on a page is going to function. So step 1, document your objections. Step 2, formulate your responses. Step 3, send it out to your team. Read the words out loud in front of the mirror, or with your partner, or with your mom, or with your dog, whatever works best for you. And then come together as a team and do the same thing where you rapid fire the objections and people respond to it. Couple things that you should not do in this exercise. Don't work on your openers. Don't work on the other parts of a cold call, right? Starts off with an opener. It starts with an opener and then progresses into some sort of value-based messaging, and then you start to get an objection. No. Feed an objection and then respond to the objection. Rapid fire. And then people will start to hear everyone else's tonality. And that is a very instructive process for the team, is to hear other people do it. But if it's the first time that everyone's read the words on the page, this exercise is much less effective. It is 10 times more effective, even if you've read it once. So you come together as a group, you read the objection, and people respond. Why am I so particular about this? I'm going to give another example from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The way we practice a move, if your partner changes some small thing about what you're trying to do, you're now practicing something else. So I'm trying to isolate in the exercise for when I do objection handling trainings with Orum internally. I do objection handling trainings with the customers that I go into pilot with now. It's a new process that I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 months. And the thing the most important thing is that you isolate your exercise to the thing that you are actually practicing. So your opener is a totally different topic, and we can talk about openers another time. Very important part of a cold call. Also important to find your own voice there. And there are good openers and bad openers. And I'd say half the customers that prospects and customers that I've worked with, the openers are okay to bad. and half of them are good. So there's a lot of room for improvement. So yeah, I think like just the most important takeaway on how you practice is just to isolate the exercise to the thing that you're working on. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna take a break here and just I'm gonna stop there. What questions do you have for me at this point? What is the most helpful for you? What kind of information can I give you to help you book more meetings? That's what I'm here for. Or has everyone, oh, there we go. What mistakes do I see SDRs making most frequently? It's a good question. Josh, yeah, I'll run through them again for you too, for the 9 objections. The most common mistakes are the rep doesn't listen. The reason why you're not listening is because you're in a state of like paralysis, I think. Or a rep is in a state of paralysis. And it's scary. Like first time you're making a cold call, that's kind of scary, right? You're going to have this fear that you're going to be rejected, you're ruining their day, and they're going to be so upset with you, and you're no longer worthy of love. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating there, but ultimately that's what everyone's fear is. And the answer is you're still worthy of love if someone objects or objects to you or hangs up on you, and So in that fear, you're not listening. Here's another common mistake. You say, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but just don't say the word but. You're basically invalidating everything that you and the prospect just said. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Would you mind if I explain a little bit more about how we can do X, Y, Z, or how we're different, or how we could support this process? And then you ask for permission. Bad tone, and that comes from not practicing. So I think those are probably the 3 most common things. And I think like that goes back to like, how do you practice this? So you practice it with the exercises that I just gave you, which is write the objections down, formulate responses, repeat them in the mirror, come together as a team and listen to each other. Formulate those responses. But the other way you practice is you pick up the phone and you talk to people. This is one of the most powerful things about Orum, which is you get more at bats. I'll get more at bats in an hour. I'll connect with 5, 6, 7 people in an hour, and that might take someone a week. It's really, really, really hard to get good at a skill when you do a whole bunch of research, place a phone call, ring, 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 and then no one picks up. With Orum, because we have a mode that's called parallel dialing. You can call multiple prospects at the same time. When Orum detects a human voice, it bridges you into the conversation. So my perception of making cold calls, and this is terribly unfair as a user of Orum, is that I click go, all of my prospects are pre-researched, and then I just talk to people all day long, and it's easy. And so my point of view has advanced a lot over the last almost 2 years that I've worked for Orum, because I've just had over 1,000 connections, and I've just had so many conversations, and booked a lot of meetings. I booked well over 100 meetings over the phone as an AE in an obscenely low amount of time. So, but at bats is what you need to practice, and that's how you can avoid the common mistakes for not listening, which I think is the most common one. But definitely an easy one to avoid. Just don't say I understand, but say at the very least say I understand, and would you be open to learning some more so I could give you some perspective on how to do this. Okay, just to go for Josh, 9 most common objections. Let me just rattle them off for you. I'm busy / I'm running to a meeting, basically the same one. Send me information. I'm not interested. I'm not the decision maker. I'm implementing other tools right now. That's a bandwidth one. We already use XYZ competitor. How did you get my number? I thought you were someone else. And then no budget. So those are the 9 most common objections that you're going to run into. And then you'll have a few company specific objections right after that. Cool. All right. What other questions? Everyone got their black belt in cold calling now? All right. Well, I think, oh, here we go. Opening lines. All right. Openers. Openers are important. I am going to start off with a hot take, which is this opener. Well, let me give you my opener first before I give my hot take. My opener is this. Hey, this is Aaron. I'm calling from Orum. It's good to connect with you. How are you? And let me tell you what it actually sounds like. It's like, hey, this is Aaron calling from Orum. It's good to connect with you. How are you doing, John? I identify who I am, I identify the company that I'm calling from, and I say their first name. So, okay, Jaslyn, I'll respond to that about voicemails in a second. So, it's, for me, like my goal on that one is like friendly. I identify myself very quickly and I say their first name. And by the way, I say their first name at the end. So it's the last thing that they hear about it. I don't know how important that is, but here's the opener that I really would encourage folks to reconsider. Someone says hello and you're like, yeah, is this John? It's not, it is not the best way to do it. I can just see that conversation rates go down when you use that opener. When I've seen other customers use that opener. So there are just better ways to do it. I know that there are better ways to do it. So another one that we use commonly here at Orum is, hey, this is Aaron calling from Orum. Good to connect with you. They keeping you busy today? It's like a little bit of a pattern interrupt. So it's people like, oh yeah, always keeping me busy. You'll get that about half the time. You get a little bit of a chuckle out of it. Another one that Avi, my colleague Avi, uses to great success. He goes, yeah, hey, this is Avi. I'm calling from Orum. Good morning. And he has this nice little like pause in there. This is Avi calling from Orum. Good morning. All right, not that long, but I've never heard anyone not say good morning or good afternoon back. It's uncanny, and so it just starts things off on the right foot, and then from there he goes into his upfront contract. Yeah, would you mind if I borrow 30 seconds to explain a little about how Orum could potentially help you? I saw that you were managing sales development over at XYZ company. And then that's how his opener proceeds. All right, voicemail strategy. What about leaving voicemails? Voicemails are an extra touch. What is the purpose of a voicemail? The purpose of a voicemail is to let people know that you are a human being with hopes, dreams, and feelings. So, and that you care. So the content of a voicemail should be very simple. Hey, this is Aaron. I'm calling from Orum. I had a few ideas on how I can get your reps more live conversations over the phone. Feel free to respond to my email, or you can give me a call back on my personal cell phone at 805-895-5037. So The purpose of your phone is to let them know that you are of the message is to let them know that you are a real person and that you are outcome oriented. So the formula there was, I identified myself. I wanted to give them some ideas on how they could drive some sort of positive business outcome, which in that case, how they can get reps more live conversations over the phone. Okay, going into the holidays, no one's picking up the phones. What advice do you have for other outreach methods besides cold calling and email if there are low engagements? So look, I mean, I think response rates go down across all channels. So the best thing that you can do is just be hyper efficient with your time. But you should always be like that. And so I don't really have advice for you to change anything about your behavior. You should always be trying to be super efficient, and you should always be multi-channel. You should always have multi-channel approaches. Your response rates simply go down because people are going to respond less. So I think that maybe the advice is just stay consistent. Don't stop, because that is going to negatively impact PG for the whole company. You just can't stop. Sure, as a business, things slow down. Now, the other alternatives, you could double up on your activity. There are pros and cons to that to make up for it. If you have time for it, why not? But if you double your activity and now you're less prepared for your conversations and you're less prepared for your emails, well, you might be actually hurting yourself. But ultimately, I think my advice is to stay consistent. There's really nothing that you can do about the holiday season, other than increase your activity, right? That's really your alternative. I suppose you can get super, super personalized on an email and spend an hour on an email. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. But I think, the consistent piece, I think, is the most important thing.
And can everybody hear me here?
I can certainly hear you. Okay. Yeah. Good to meet you, Keith.
Right. Yes. Good to meet you. This is great. Fantastic. I love this stuff. And so something to kind of add on that too is, you could double up your activity, things like that. But what I've also found, especially as we're coming up and we know we only have like a week or two until Christmas and all this other, or the holiday season and all that, is when you're doing your list or you're looking for the folks that you want to call, just make sure that you have really solid data on those folks, right? Because like a lot of times you'll just start putting people into your cadences and try to just call. But if you take the time, make sure you have mobiles and make sure you have a direct way to get in front of those folks, I think you'll find that your success rate will go up quite a bit. And so just something I wanted to add there, because you start to panic a little bit and you just start doing stuff. But if you actually slow down and make sure your data is good, I think you'll find you'll have really nice results, because you'll start having conversations. And if at the very least, you'll plant that seed for the new year, and you'll actually you'll start on the path of building that familiarity. And that's really important.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, a part of any sort of calling strategy, I mean, mobile phone numbers are the future. It's the only way to go. Direct lines, okay, direct office lines, extensions. I've had some success with it, not a ton, but I basically 98% of my calling is on a mobile phone number.
That's right.
I'm doing very, very little. And what are the great mobile phone providers out there? ZoomInfo is obviously a gold standard. They're a publicly traded company, 20 billion market cap, investing a lot of money into it. So they're certainly a good solution, but there's a lot of other ones, LeadIQ, Lucia, Seamless. Apollo has shocked me with how good their data is. Really, really big surprise there. I do some consulting for some early stage startups, and the folks that are using Apollo, I'm seeing sometimes 10% connect rates. But as a general principle, you can't have, if you really, really want to maximize your connect rates and have high performing calling culture, at least 2 data providers, because no one data provider has every number for every single person. So having 2 data providers can make a really, really big impact on your connect rates. But once you connect with them, right, it's all about objection handling. So you don't want to don't let the money that you've invested into both the time you've invested into it and the money you've invested into your data providers go to waste if you don't effectively handle the objections. And 100% of the time you get objections. Yep. So that, in my opinion, it's always the most important thing to work on. But yeah, it's great. Really, really good point. Always make sure you're adding mobile phone numbers, but that really should be all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then with the voicemail stuff too, just especially because it's going to be harder, people are going to kind of be out. Just make sure you're tying the story, like in your voicemail. Hey, I sent you an email earlier. Or I'm connected with you on LinkedIn. Just make sure that they can see that you're the same person across all those different channels. And so good stuff. But yeah, this is great. I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. So appreciate it.
No, thanks for joining. Okay, Robert, what's the way I handle I thought you were someone else? Hey, sorry to disappoint. Would you mind if I borrow 30 seconds to explain a little bit more about why I'm calling? And you can let me know if you want to continue the conversation. Almost exactly the same. I say, sorry to disappoint you. I had a little bit of humor into it. That's it. That's the handle on that one. But there's a million ways you could respond to that one. I would recommend humor though. And then you go right back into the permission. Would you mind if I borrow 30 seconds to explain a little bit more? And you can let me know if you want to continue the conversation. You'd be amazed at how many people will say, yeah. Or they'll usually go to a lot of times they'll go to send me some information after that. And then you could potentially use the same one again. I've got a couple of recordings of me 4 objections deep and still setting a meeting. It's fun. But because I practice it so much and I have the power of Orum at my disposal, I get more practice than people who don't use Orum. It's just second nature to me. And it does help with the confidence, helps with the tone, and your prospects will obviously respond to things like that too. Practice makes perfect. There's no way to escape it. So, okay. Yeah. So, all right. So let me give you, so Bob Williams, so if I thought you were someone else versus I'm not the right person are slightly different. So if someone says, hey, I'm not the right person. So I get this a lot at Orum because I love calling into kind of the middle layer management of SDRs because they're SDR management because they are the closest to the problem and are most empathetic to the problems. So if someone says, look, I don't make decisions on technology. That is a very common one I get. And I tell them the truth on this one, which is, hey, look, I don't need you to be the decision maker. In any sort of enterprise sale, there are multiple stakeholders involved. And I actually think your perspective is a very important one to have. And I certainly know I won't get anything done unless you think that this is a beneficial initiative. So, would you mind if I show you how I can get your reps more conversations? And then we can go from there. So yeah, that's how I handle I'm not the decision maker, which is tell them the truth about enterprise sales. Yeah, there's 8 people are going to be involved in the evaluation, and there's no such thing as a decision maker anymore. There are economic buyers, champions, coaches, technical evaluators. They're probably a technical evaluator or maybe even a champion. So just tell them that. And you'd be shocked at how many meetings I've set from that one and close deals from it. Because for my sale, the SDR managers are mission critical. No deal gets done without them, period. Now, if someone says, I'm not the right person to speak to, this is just not my purview, ask for the referral. And yeah, I'm not the right person to speak to. This is just literally not my purview at all. Could you recommend someone that I reach out to? Use the word recommend, as opposed to, can you give me some person's number, right? Would you recommend someone that I can reach out to? And would you mind if I mentioned you? Is how I would deal with that one. What is your response to, how did you get my number? I tell them the truth. See, this is the truth shall set you free. If someone says, sorry, how'd you get my number? I say, yeah, we use a wide variety of commonly used data sources like Zoom Info. I'm not exactly sure which one it came from, but likely from one of those. Would you mind if I borrowed 30 seconds to explain a little bit more about how it could potentially help you? And you can let me know if you want to continue the conversation. Straight into it. Answer the question, tell them the truth, and then move right into the meat of the topic. You don't need to be defensive about it. And like more and more people are, anyone, you know, a lot of your buyers are accustomed to the fact that there are data sources, because guess what? They work at a business too, and that business needs to sell products as well. And if they don't understand that, they're probably pretty junior in their role, or unreasonable. I don't know, one of the two. Okay, not interested. So it depends upon when not interested comes up, but 99% of the time when not interested comes up, it's just a brush off. They're not interested. It's not that they're not interested in your solution. It's that they're not interested in speaking to you at this moment because you interrupted them. So my objection handle for I'm not interested is very, very simple and very similar to what you've already heard me say at least 10 times today. Hey, they're like, you know, hey, this is Aaron, I'm calling from Orum. I give my little opener and they're like, I'm not interested. Look, I know I caught you cold here, but you mind if I level with you just very quickly and explain how we could potentially help you? And you can let me know if you want to continue the conversation, right? It usually I'm not interested. Like they're not responding to like something that they could even be not interested in. Usually it comes like really fast. Okay. If you've given your pitch and then they're like, I'm not interested. Okay. Hey, look, we help reps get more live conversations over the phone. I could triple your connections. And then someone's like, yeah, look, I'm not really interested. Okay. That's slightly different. I'm going to say, well, would you mind if we discuss that a little bit more? We've been able to get these outcomes for other customers. I think we can get that for you. And I think that would be interesting for you. Can you tell me why that wouldn't be interesting for you? It's a little bit of I'm willing to do that to get a little hot on that one. But 99% of the time people say I'm not interested as a brush off at the beginning of a conversation. So it doesn't really come up that like, oh, I'm really not interested in tripling my meetings. Is someone really not interested in that? Is someone really not interested in, securing their cloud application? Yes, of course, people are interested in doing that. So I would say that for the most part, the not interested is just comes at the beginning of a conversation as a brush off, and you haven't really given them enough information to not be interested in something. Go revert to the initial one. Like, would you mind if I just explain a little bit more? And then you can let me know if you want to continue the conversation. And then you'd be surprised. People are like, okay, all right. A lot, like a surprising amount of yeses from that. Any thoughts on LinkedIn messaging after a connect? Always do it. So I do it live on the call. I connect. Hey, this is Aaron calling from Orum. Great to connect. LinkedIn is already up for me. Orum automatically pops it open for you. And then someone having a conversation. And look, like after like the second objection is when I'm like, okay, you start to be you don't want to keep going forever and ever and ever. That's just not polite. And I will always be in that moment connecting with them. Connecting with them over LinkedIn. If they're like, look, I want to socialize this a little bit more, and you've really sussed it out and they actually are going to socialize it for you, and they tell you they've asked for a case study. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and connect with you on LinkedIn. Looking forward to connecting with you in the future. And then just leave a super positive message in the connect. And I get tons of LinkedIn connections from that. How long do I normally wait for a connection? After a connection, how long do I normally wait after a connect on the phone to send my subsequent message? I mean, I connect live on the phone. The connection comes live on the phone. How long do I wait on the subsequent message? Like, if you don't hear back the next day, call them the next, send them a message the next day for sure. I'm not a believer in waiting forever to continue your outreach. Chase your nose is my philosophy. It's not incongruent with being impolite either. you can be persistent and polite at the same time. As long as you are empathetic, curious, outcome focused, you're trying to help them, then the worst parts of this whole process are you avoid that. Cool. All right. So I think we're wrapping up here. I hope this was helpful for everyone. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to answer additional questions if it's helpful. I love talking about this stuff. Yeah, it was a lot of fun today. Thanks so much.
That was really, really helpful. Thank you so much, Aaron. I'm going to put your LinkedIn again in the chat so people can connect with you. Audience, thank you so much for participating. We are wrapping things up, but first I want to thank everyone for attending on this Monday. You are the best part of MSP. Without you, our events wouldn't be that amazing. I also want to say thank you to our wonderful Orum. Again, there is a request demo with our sponsor button at the top of this page. You can also go in the booth and check some ungated resources that they put in there just for you. And of course, thank you, Aaron, for all this knowledge. I took so many notes. I'll have to cut them down for the key takeaways for the page. That was super fantastic. I know people are really interested. I see in the chat everyone saying thank you so much, very helpful. Audience, you will receive a follow-up email from me with the key takeaways, the 9 objections that Aaron told us and the categories that he also told us, so you can have this information handy. And the recording for this event will also be available in my follow-up email later today. So Aaron, we can go hang out backstage, and while the MSP team works on putting the recording on the website for everyone to watch it again. Thank you, audience. It was so good to have you. Any last thoughts, Aaron?
Just
good.
Keep grinding.
Awesome. Let's go backstage and hang out for a little bit. Thank you, audience. I'll see you in the next MSP event.